The coronavirus crisis is changing life as we know it dramatically tonight after the government ordered the immediate closure of almost all the places we go to for leisure, with bars, pubs, restaurants and gyms among them. The radical move came with an equally radical package of financial help from the Chancellor to try to protect businesses, jobs and the vulnerable. Rishi Sunak declared that never before had there been state intervention on this scale in this country. He announced that the government would pay up to 80% of people's wages, up to a maximum of £2,500 a month, to those whose jobs are at risk. And the Prime Minister Boris Johnson demanded the immediate shutting down across the UK of the vast majority of places where we socialise and exercise. The measures, unprecedented in their scale and scope, came as government advisers issued a sobering warning. They said unnecessary social contact will have to be avoided for the best part of a year to prevent NHS intensive care units from being overwhelmed. The latest figures show that there have been 3,983 confirmed coronavirus cases in the UK, although experts think that the total number is considerably higher. And there have been 177 deaths. With our first report this evening, here's our political correspondent, Alex Forsyth.
This will be a familiar sight across the country from tomorrow. Restaurants, cafes, pubs, clubs, all shut down, no longer by choice, now by command. The impact enormous for business, having to cope with the doors closed, and for workers who'll have nowhere to go. The Prime Minister said these were the next necessary steps to try and slow the spread of this virus.
We are collectively telling cafes, pubs, bars and restaurants to close tonight as soon as they reasonably can and not to open tomorrow. Though, to be clear, they can continue to provide take-out services. We're also telling nightclubs, theatres, cinemas, gyms and leisure centres to close on the same timescale.
A serious moment matched by a significant intervention from the Chancellor, a package worth billions, not just for employers, but those losing work and wages too.
We're paying people's wages up to 80%, so someone can be furloughed rather than laid off to protect their jobs. We're deferring over £30 billion of taxes until the end of the financial year. We're lending unlimited sums of money, interest-free, for 12 months. We're abolishing business rates altogether this year if you're in hospitality, retail and leisure. We're providing cash grants of £25,000 for small business properties.
These closures come with a price.
How long, if you can, do you see these measures lasting, and how do you plan to enforce them?
I think everybody can see the imperative of doing what is necessary, of protecting our NHS and saving lives.
As the signs go up and shutters come down, many will be working out what the help on offer means for them, whether it's enough. Claire's just taken on a 5-year lease of this pub in Norwich.
We'd like to believe that we come through the other side of this. We really, really, really do. And I'm going to be honest, I'm struggling to hold it together at the moment. And it's not going to just be me, it's going to be all of us.
The government is putting in place significant measures to try and counter the impact of this virus in just days and weeks. Policies that would usually take months, if not years, to implement. And all with the knowledge the decisions it takes now will have crucial consequences for all of us as the way we live our lives profoundly changes.
This is state intervention on a new level. Some want more from the Chancellor.
I'd like him to increase the level of statutory sick pay. I'd like him to make sure that employers pay their way in making sure people get their wages. And I'd like to see that he improves benefits for those people who are unemployed and carers and those with disabilities.
In Scotland, an acknowledgement people will have to make sacrifices.
Doing everything we can to slow down the spread of this virus now means that we will save lives and we will protect our NHS. We cannot just carry on as normal. Life right now is not normal.
It will certainly feel very different very soon. Now the struggle to manage this virus has reached a whole new level. Alex Forsyth, BBC News, Westminster.
As we heard, a swathe of public places across the UK are being told to close in an effort to slow the spread of the coronavirus. We'll hear from our correspondents in Glasgow, Belfast and London in a moment. But first, let's go to Danny Savage, who's in Harrogate for us now. Danny.
Rita, it's just over 5 hours since the Prime Minister called last orders at the bar across the nation. What little trade there was soon leaked away, and now this town centre is dead. It's like it's 4 o'clock in the morning here. It's like that's how it feels. And this has been replicated in towns and cities and villages across the nation. The latest far-reaching but necessary change to our lives. As the Prime Minister announced that all pubs, bars and restaurants should close, people were surprised at the immediacy of the order.
Can I finish my pint? That's what I said. Which is, yeah, I thought you were kicking us out.
Drink up and go home was the gist of the announcement.
It's a sensible thing to do, having them shut down, and I think after this, you'll see it from today, the public really just not being outside as much.
It's pretty annoying.
On your birthday?
On my birthday as well. Yeah, mental, crazy.
You don't really believe it's happening, but obviously it needs to happen. It just affects many people's general routine as well. So yeah, it's quite shocking.
The bar manager here now has to shut up shop, but was putting on a brave face.
We've kind of modelled our business plan around sort of a 3-month to 6-month closure, should that be the case. We think we can get through it with the help of the government and the loans.
Harrogate was a town of disparities. Some restaurants and bars had closed down before today. Now it's a blanket order.
On a Friday night, bars and restaurants should be busy and crowded. But look at the streets here, it's virtually deserted. Friday the 20th of March 2020 will be remembered as the night that part of our culture, part of our lifestyle, abruptly stopped. And for how long?
At the local theatre, they reckon at least until the start of May. A few stragglers were making use of last orders. Some pubs were virtually giving away beer tonight. Shutting them is just another sign of how serious the government is about wanting us to stay in, not giving us an excuse to go out. Danny Savage, BBC News, Harrogate.
Well, that's the view from Harrogate. Let's speak now to our correspondents around the UK. Lorna Gordon is in Glasgow for us, Emma Vardy is in Belfast and Helena Wilkinson is in central London. First to Lorna.
Yes, Rita, on a Friday night, this street in Glasgow would normally be packed with people enjoying a drink or having a meal with family and friends, but not tonight and not for the foreseeable future. In a televised address, Scotland's First Minister reiterating that message, asking pubs, clubs, bars, cafes to close. In comments she made earlier, she also made clear that she was worried that younger people in particular were not heeding the message to socially distance. Well, it is quiet here tonight, but it is not completely deserted, and there's a range of opinions from those we've been speaking to. Some people saying the measures being brought in are a good idea, others not so keen, all of them saying that tonight is a last hurrah.
And Emma Vardy is in Belfast for us.
Well, look, Belfast saw its quietest St Patrick's Day this week in memory when many of the pubs then on that night decided to voluntarily close. Some of those in the city centre did decide to remain open. They came in for a bit of criticism for that as people become increasingly anxious about seeing people gathering. Tonight, there are a few people still left in those remaining few pubs which are still open, making the most of the final few hours here in Belfast. Wetherspoons just down the road, that was kicking people out early tonight over the last hour. It's closing early as a result of the earlier announcement, they told us. But of course here in Northern Ireland there has been increasing pressure all this week for pubs to close, simply because in the Republic of Ireland, well, the pubs were asked to close much earlier. The order was given there from Sunday and more than 7,000 of them closed their doors. Pubs in Dublin we've even seen getting boarded up. But that moment, well, it has now come for Northern Ireland, for pubs to call time. Something that would have seemed almost unthinkable a couple of weeks ago in what is usually a very lively city, but another step that I think will just bring the reality home to people once again.
And Helena Wilkinson in central London.
Well, Rita, this is the heart of London, Leicester Square, on a normal Friday night. The bars, the restaurants, the pubs around here would be packed full of people. The streets would be full of people. Not tonight. It is deserted apart from a few people wandering around, and these are far from normal times. Now, some of the venues here had closed before the Prime Minister made that announcement on the new restrictions. There are still a couple of them open. There are still people in some of the pubs and restaurants around here, but there is evidence that these restrictions are taking effect. You walk around and you can see signs that have been put up in windows of restaurants telling customers that they are shutting. And as the closing time inches closer, the owners of these venues are trying to digest the news that they will be shutting tonight with no idea at all as to when they will next reopen. These new restrictions, another example of the enormous impact that this virus is having on all of our lives.
Helena, thank you. Helena Wilkinson, Emma Vardy and Lorna Gordon, thank you. Back now to those sweeping measures announced by the Chancellor Rishi Sunak, who said there'll be no limit to the funds that he'll make available to get the UK economy and its workers through the coronavirus crisis. In a move never seen before, the government will help to pay the wages of millions of workers in the private sector. They'll pay 80% of their salaries, up to £2,500 a month, backdated to the 1st of March. It'll ensure that people retain their jobs, even if their employers can't afford to pay them. Alongside that, companies will have their VAT payments deferred until the end of June. And for the next 12 months, universal credit will be increased by £1,000 for the year. Mr Sunak said he was introducing unprecedented measures for unprecedented times. Our business editor Simon Jack reports.
One of East London's popular social hotspots on a typical Saturday. This is what it will look like this weekend. The government tonight ordered the closure of venues like this, but the effect has already been catastrophic for the hospitality industry. 85% of workers here have already been let go, and the owner insists that government rebates for up to 80% of workers' wages won't prevent further redundancies.
Every business is now going to have to work out, following this announcement of the government's contribution, how many employees they can save. Because it doesn't matter how, even with 100%, businesses aren't going to be able to save everyone that's still on the payroll. I think, with the 30 people we've got left, we're going to sit down and work out with our cash flow now and see how many of those we can save. It won't be everybody.
On a normal Saturday night, 2,500 people would come through this food hall, but it's now shut for the foreseeable future. And although the government has announced hundreds of billions of potential support, it's not size that matters, it's the speed with which businesses can get that support. And for many, it's already too late.
Desperate to leave the property altogether as well.
Like workers at this hotel near Aviemore in Scotland, who live on site and were told to leave their job and their home immediately.
I got this letter, saying me I have to leave, and I get fired, and they didn't give me any reasons. I have been working here for 2 years. So throw people like that in the middle of a pandemic,